The other day, my 4-year-old daughter came to me and asked this question. Daddy, she said, who made God? And that is in some ways one of the most profound questions you can ask, but it's also the simplest question you can ask, which is why children love to ask it. Who made God? Well, you can answer it on many levels. And the way I answered it with my 4-year-old was to look at her and go that God is the one who made everything. And if there was somebody who made God, then that person would themselves be God. The very definition of being God is you're the one who hasn't been made. And just like the question itself was both simple and profound, that answer that I gave there, although I tried to make it suitable for a 4-year-old level, opens up a much bigger question that philosophers have talked about for millennia. What if the very existence of the universe is a screaming great big sign saying there is a God? No matter what you believe, whether you're a Christian and you believe in God, or you're an atheist and you just believe in particles banging about together, you have to answer the question, what explains the very fact that there is anything at all? And the problem you have if you're an atheist and you believe that the whole universe was brought into existence, 14 billion odd years ago by a Big Bang, that raises the question, well, what created the Big Bang? In other words, you believe the Big Bang is the creator of everything, well, what created your creator? And if you posit some other cause, then what created that, and what created that, and what created that? And unless there is some final it behind which you cannot go, where does the great chain of causation stop? You see, we're forced to realise that there are two choices confronting us. Either matter and particles and the laws of science are ultimate, but the problem is those are, to use the philosopher's language, contingent things. They could be other than they are, and it seems very unlikely to say that atoms and particles have always existed. Or we could turn to something like God, and one of the definitions that those who believe in God have always used of him is God is the one who there is no explanation for. He simply is, and thus works very well as the grounding and foundation of the whole of reality. Well, isn't it interesting that the name of God in the Bible, Yahweh, means I am, the one who is without explanation. But one last thought for you quickly, and it's this. How you came to be, what created you, says a lot about something's value. I have on the wall of my study a really messy explosion of crayon and paint on a piece of paper. You look at it and go, why is it on my wall? Well, it's on my wall because my 4-year-old daughter, who I introduced to you at the start, painted it for me, and thus it has value because of who made it. Well, magnify that to a cosmic scale. If you are simply made by a series of random processes and accidents over 14 billion years, that says something about you. In fact, as the atheist cosmologist Lawrence Krauss put it, you are just a 1% bit of pollution in the universe. On the other hand, if you were made deliberately and intentionally by a creator God who knows you and loves you, that means your life has potentially infinite value. In fact, Christianity is the only worldview that pays you the compliment of saying, as the book of Genesis says, that you are made in the image of God. Well, if that's the kind of God we're talking about, wouldn't you like to know him?